Moments ago, 6 former Mississippi police officers had back in court. They've already pleaded guilty to federal charges of torturing 2 black men. Well, now they are staring down state charges. Prosecutors say the suspects, all of whom are white, called themselves the Goon Squad because of the excessive force that they've used.
This was a story that was first brought to my attention by my good friend, Brother Marquel Bridges, who is one of the leading organizers in the state of Mississippi for justice. And he brought to my attention the story of Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, who were tortured by this so-called Goon Squad. They were sexually assaulted by this Goon Squad, and one of the gentlemen was shot in the mouth, through the tongue and through the neck. Both gentlemen were tortured for about 2 hours, and these officers used their tasers on these men throughout the duration of it. I want to play a little bit more of this compilation of audio sound bites. It includes an interview with the 2 men. And I want you to listen to the difficulty that Michael Jenkins has speaking. Specifically, listen to his voice, because this is what the Goon Squad did to him.
I crawled here to this spot, and they started beating me here and tasing me. As you can see, blood spots and all. And my blood spots there.
I'm embarrassed.
That was Eddie Parker and Michael Jenkins. When you think about Michael Jenkins, at one point, one of these officers who's admitted to this took out a gun, and they believed they had cleared the gun. They put it in his mouth and they pulled the trigger. He cleared the gun again and put it back in his mouth and pulled the trigger. At that point, it shot through his tongue and exited his neck. That's why he has trouble talking to this day. He'll be dealing with this for the rest of his life.
Now, I know Rankin County, Mississippi really well. I actually attended the Northwest Rankin Attendance Center for 2 years. So I know that area pretty decently. I also know that despite the very vocal condemnations of this type of behavior, this type of abuse and this type of torture, these were 6 officers from the same precinct, from the same department. Okay, the 6 officers, and this is not a case of a few bad apples, right? These are a lot of bad apples that participated with this collective identity known as the Goon Squad. Right. It reminds me of the California police officers and sheriff deputies who also ran around with their gang names. What were their names? The Executioners and the Reapers, things like that. So you have these officers for whom their authority and their power is not enough. It's not good enough for them to literally have the power of their shield and their guns. They have to coalesce around even more violent identities and branding and gang affiliations, and then they take that and execute that rage, that violence against the black community overwhelmingly. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some white victims here. Maybe not in Mississippi, definitely in California. In Mississippi, I'm sure all their victims are black, just because, well, that's Mississippi. But the point is that these groups exist throughout our policing agencies around the country, and we absolutely have to get beyond this idea that just because someone wears a uniform that they are above all of the racism and the biases and the violence that the average person is filled with in this country. If you take the average conservative police officer, who, mind you, all the photos ops that we've seen policing agencies take with Donald Trump all around this country, right? You take the Make America Great Again mantra, right? You take the uptick in violence and violent rhetoric that now, this is not new. I'm not saying that this is the type of behavior that's new because of MAGA. I just want you to just see how it has all come to a head, how it's all to like a boiling point where you honestly have every layer of this country, from the average voter who supports the MAGA mentality, the conservative movement, to law enforcement officials who have entrenched power behind them, utilizing that same mentality, that same way of thinking, that same bigotry, that same hatred, and using the force of law behind it. And oh, by the way, it's not just the force of law. This is them going above, believing that they are above the law, creating these gang affiliations and acting out violence against particularly black people, in this case in Mississippi. I'm not surprised, but we should all be disgusted and do something about it.